Hey, I'm Michael Dorinda.
And I'm Jake Bennett. And do it.
I'm David Hempill.
And welcome to episode 83 of the North Meets South web podcast.
Ladies and gentlemen, there's a legend in our midst. He goes by the name of Hemp. Welcome, David Hempill, to the show. David is the creator of Laravel Nova, twice, co-author of Tailwind CSS, which is sort of a joke, but not really, actually. He is a champ in Rocket League, soon to be grand champ, and he is also the author of a brand new tool called Valet Lite. And David's going to be on to talk with us today about that brand new tool and his journey along the way. So welcome, David.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Absolutely. This was sort of a last minute thing. That's okay. That's kind of how we operate.
This is an avoidance tactic for us.
Indeed. We won't go there. We're just gonna be excited for David. We're not going to talk about the project that we're not launching because of things.
Problems.
Also, Michael, had you had the new little one on our last show?
Not on this one, no. We were still waiting. But Olivia Ray Helene was born on the 11th of September. So sharing a birthday with another friend of the podcast, Mr. Andrew Del Preti. So shout out to Andrew as well for sharing his birthday.
We should get him on here. He's in Alaska, so he's like, it's like 6 o'clock in the afternoon.
It's good time for
there.
6 o'clock in the afternoon.
It's still dark.
They do times differently.
In the afternoon, evening. It is dark. It probably gets dark there on like 5. I don't know. He lives on like top of the globe, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's awesome. Congratulations, Michael. Way to go. Way to go, Ree.
It's been going pretty well. She's 3 weeks and 2 days now, so it's almost been a month that she's been with us, and her sleep is kind of regular, which is nice. It's not long enough. It's kind of 2 hours on, 30 minutes off. So getting that 30-minute wake up overnight is a bit rough. I think it was Eric Barnes was saying, "Oh, you're still getting 8.5 hours." I'm like, dude, what I want you to do is go to bed at your normal time and set an alarm for 2 hours, and then be awake for an hour, and then set your alarm for 2 hours, and then be awake for another hour, and see how you feel in the morning. So I'm pretty much
I have to do that now with my puppy.
Yeah,
to get out in the middle of the night and go take him out.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it's,
speaking of, it's not
too bad.
Go ahead. Sorry, I'll let you finish first about the actual baby, the real baby, and then we'll talk about the puppy, because I want to hear about this puppy too.
Yeah, so it's been good. She's putting on weight really well. She was basically full term. She was 36 weeks and 5 days, which they said was close enough to full term, which is 37. So we didn't have to hang around NICU this time, which was nice. It was nice to sort of think back on Friday that, we were only just bringing Eli home at this time when he was born. So having had her home for 3 weeks, it's been different because we didn't really have the experience of having a newborn at home the first time around. It was kind of like, let's go and visit the baby at the hospital, and then you leave the baby and then you come home. So
right.
This has been a little bit different. It's been good. She is a little bit of a bully, because during the day she'll sleep like 3.5, 4, 5 hours, and then at night she's only doing 2 hours. So, and we try to force her to wake up after a couple of hours during the day, and it like doesn't do anything really. She'll still only sleep for 2 hours at a time at night. So, she's good. She's healthy. She's packing on weight.
How's Eli taking on to being a big brother?
He loves it at the moment.
That's awesome.
It's only 3 weeks, but he's the sweetest little angel to her. He's always awesome. Like, every time he sees her, he smiles and he's giving her lots of kisses, and he tells her that he loves her and all of that. So we are enjoying it at the moment while it's all happening. I'm sure at some point in the next couple of years they'll be at each other's throats.
Enemies.
Yeah, they'll be at each other's throats in a while, and then hopefully they'll all pull through in the end. Who knows?
David, you kind of have the reverse, right? You've got a girl first and then a boy, right? So how do they get along? They typically do pretty well. They're good buddies.
Yeah, I think so. They seem to be pretty good. I don't have a lot of references to cross check.
Sure, right.
I guess my own brothers, but
yeah, right. My kids, it just depends on the day, right? Some days they're like just ready to kill each other all day long, and then other days they're like, best buddies all day long.
Yeah.
Hey, real quick before we kind of jump into the Valet stuff, David, tell me about this new puppy. What kind of puppy did you get?
I have a Cavapoo now.
Yeah, man.
Which is a King Charles Cavalier mixed with a miniature poodle.
That's what we got. Love
Really?
it. Yeah, seriously.
Oh yeah, I think we got the idea from you.
Did you? I don't. Okay, that's funny. I think I remember talking about it a little bit. I didn't know that you guys ended up getting a Cavapoo though. That's awesome. We love our dogs. So I'm stoked for you guys.
Yeah, she's hypoallergenic and she's really cute. She's still learning to potty train. That's kind of rough right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
You know,
they're
you're
super
supposed to be able
smart
to.
dogs though.
I know you're supposed to be able to train him in like 7 days to not do it, and she's still having trouble with it.
Did
She's
you?
a runt,
So I.
so
Oh,
didn't get
okay.
enough
Gotcha.
breast milk probably.
Yeah, exactly. We like the runts. Hey, I actually talked to Taylor before we got our dog, and he was like, "Dude, one thing you have to do is put a bell by your back door." Um, did you talk to him at all, or have you guys tried that? The bell by the back door?
Well, I've been there to his house, and they've done that, so we got the idea to
Yeah.
do that too. We have the bells on our door, but it's not working quite yet because she's not
Okay.
allowed really to be out a
Yeah,
lot of
sure.
places yet. So she hasn't got to ring that bell. But also Taylor, like, pretty frequently tells me he hates his dog because it won't stop like ringing the bell.
It is true, dude. Our dog, it'll be like 3 a.m. I just hear ding 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 ding. I'm like, oh my gosh. So now he's sleeping in the laundry room, and that's fine. He's got a nice little bed in there. He just sleeps in there. And now in the morning he just does this instead. Roof. He's just like a single bark, and then he'll wait like a minute, and then roof. Oh my word. He's
very
cute.
polite.
Yes, exactly. He's smart. He's good, but man, there are days. There are days. Well, hey, sounds like everybody's kind of got their own new stuff going on at home. That's awesome. As I kind of talked about at the beginning of the show, David, you've been working on this Valet Light for the last little while now, and this last week you kind of made a push here and announced Valet Light. So I was hoping we could talk just a little bit about sort of your experience with that, kind of like what your motivation was behind it, and kind of what your plans are for it, and what stage you're in right now. So maybe just talk about a little bit about, like, you know, on this blog post that you put out there, you had like the good old days, right? So you talk a little bit about like your motivation and kind of your bent towards like GUIs. So maybe you could kind of start there.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like it came from an older generation of web developers because I came from like the era of DHTML and Notepad.
DHTML,
You know,
I forgot about that.
yeah, like dynamicdrive.com, where you had
that
like
was stuff.
could make a shooting star follow your cursor and stuff like that. And that was basically the coolest stuff you could do. And then there was Macromedia Flash, which I got into a little bit. But yeah, so I just, for me, like, I always came with this like kind of hacker mindset. Like I was not ever a coder. I would not say I was like a good coder, or I'm not a good coder now, which it's not a good advertisement for Valet Light, I guess. But I always kind of had like that design first mentality. And so I always appreciated a good, you know, interface, because that's the only way I could get stuff done for like a lot of years until I actually learned how to do the command line stuff. So, you know, I was used to like WAMP and, you know, front page actually was the first thing. Front page, Dreamweaver, you know, eventually WAMP and MAMP kind of stuff. And that's, I don't know, even things later on that were like nice tools, you know, Panic had Coda, which I never really used that, but I always appreciated the aesthetic of the app and like the goal of it. And you had things like CSS Edit, which was like just an app for editing CSS, which is, it's crazy to think of now because we're all editing every language in VS Code or PHP Storm or Vim, whatever.
I did throw that in there.
Yeah.
Don't want to forget Michael.
Yeah. I mean, I have sympathy for the Vim OGs. But one of my favorite web development apps was Espresso too, and that would do a lot of it was like the FTP transfer client along with the code editor and CSS and browser refresh kind of thing. So I've just come from this background of loving like GUIs. And so
yeah, and one of the ones that you kind of mentioned in your blog post is you kind of had this this tweet from May of this year, and you're talking about Podcast Maker. Which, like, the idea was like you had one app that did one thing and it did it really well, right? And it's just like, this is how you make a podcast. You literally drop in your audio, you put a couple chapter markers, some metadata, and then you just boom, upload it to your FTP server and it's done, right? It just does everything. It does all the things for that one specific thing, but it only does that, right?
Yeah.
And so that's sort of kind of like what you're talking with. Like, was it Espresso you said, or was it Coda?
Espresso and Coda, they're kind of like the same thing.
Both the same sort of idea, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this is your code editor. We'll upload it to FTP when you're done, and we'll handle the auto refresh stuff, and it does all that for you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Before the era of build tools and node modules and pipelines and Webpack and all that stuff.
For sure. I feel like in some senses we're kind of hitting that. Like, I feel like people are just hitting their limit with that. Like, everybody's fed up with these build tools and all the time being on the command line. Like, I feel like this is kind of Caleb Porzio too, right? Like, he said, as soon as I have to like invoke a build tool to get my JavaScript stuff working, like I'm done, like too much. Like, that's why like Alpine, you literally have that CDN single line, you just boop, drop it in the top and you're done, right? That's like, it just feels so much nicer, right? And it is sort of like a throwback to like how it used to be when you would, when you'd go to DHTML, right? And literally you would paste a script in the top of on top of your page, and that was it. That's all you had to do. You didn't have a build tool or any of that stuff. You just dropped it in and it worked.
Yeah.
And generally you could leave it for 10 years and it would still work.
Yeah,
whereas now you kind of got to keep it up to date every 3 weeks because there's a new security release for one of the packages 16 levels down.
Yeah.
That's a dependency that you use.
Yeah. Yeah, I read today that actually, like, I think on average, each thing depends on like 388 like NPM packages. I think it was literally that exact number because I just read it a couple hours ago. But yeah, you're right. Like, if you come back to a project like even like a month and a half or 2 months later, like there's like you need to run NPM audit fix or whatever because there's all these vulnerable packages or GitHub starts warning you about your dependency trees.
Yeah, and you got to hope that running NPM install still works or NPM CI still works.
Yep.
And you've got to update NPM now, and then now you're using a different version of NPM. A new version of Xcode has come out. You've got to Xcode select install command line utilities. Oh, that doesn't work. How do you remove that? Oh, Christ! And then you're using a whole new version of macOS. You've gone from whatever to Big Sur, and now that doesn't work. Oh, crikey!
Right, or Homebrew or whatever, right? So all these command line dependencies, even in your local environment, right? So it's sort of like takes a little bit further, right? Which is kind of the path that we're going down, which is, you have these build tools that you use to build your stuff, but it also is like local. Like if Homebrew, if your PHP breaks, like hope to God you never have to upgrade Node, right, through Homebrew, because this can break all your crap, right? And so I think that kind of gets us into like the next portion of it, right? Which is basically like this is sort of like your app. So what's the pitch for Valet Lite?
Well, yeah, I'm a seasoned developer. I've been doing this for over a decade or longer, and there's still days when my local development environment just doesn't work for no reason. I haven't updated Mac OS 10, I haven't updated Node or anything like that. It just doesn't work. and I actually was running into this on Chipper CI. I'm just like, why doesn't this work? Every time I try to load this project up every week, it just stops working, And so that was the motivation really to get started. Because think about like people that are coming on to development for the first time. How are they going to figure this stuff out?
Yeah.
Like it used to be Notepad and a browser, and you refresh it, and that's all you had to do. And then if you were really fancy, you had an index.php or like a CGI script to mail people with.
Right.
But I can't imagine people trying to get started now. And so this is kind of for people that are getting started and people like me that appreciate really simple one-off apps that do something well. That was the kind of the motivation for Valet Lite, which it's like Laravel Valet made a lot of that stuff really easy, but it's still a command line tool and it has its own complexities and dependency issues sometimes. As good as it is.
Yeah, absolutely. I've run into a couple of those before. Not super often, to be real honest. Not super often. Valet has worked pretty well for me, but there have been a couple times where I've needed to do something. It's just like, man, I don't like it's not working as I was expecting it to, or something else, probably like my PHP version upgraded, or when trying to I have an old project that needs to run PHP 6 dot something, and then I have a new project that needs to run PHP 7 dot something, and then it's like I'm trying to upgrade another project to PHP 8, and I don't really have the ability to do that super easily. And there's blog posts and you can read about it. But again, like if you're targeting like the new developer, you've lost them already. Like it's over their head, right? So,
well, hold on. You just said PHP 6. I didn't know anybody had a copy of that. You said PHP 6 dot.
5. Sorry, 578. Thanks, David. Yeah, thanks to the question. I actually had one that was running on 4 at one point. It was bad. I had to use Docker for that. But maybe for like people who don't even know like what Valet is, maybe like you talk a little about like what, obviously like Valet Lite is sort of like harkens to the fact that there's like a Valet whole, right? The whole thing. Like, so like we know what Laravel Valet is, but like maybe for people, because you don't have to know what Valet is in order to be able to use Valet Lite. It's not a prereq, right? So what just is Valet Lite altogether? Like, what is it?
Valet Lite is going to be the simplest way to get started with developing Laravel and WordPress projects on macOS. It's going to run your web servers. It's going to handle SSL certificates locally, and it's going to have a built-in web server, so you can have nice domains like davidhemphill.test or chipperci.test or thenpingme.test. And that's basically it. But it's going to bundle several versions of PHP that you can switch through easily. That's pretty much it.
And it doesn't have any need for homebrew, right? I mean, that's a big piece of it, right? Is you don't actually have to do any of configuration or setting up through the command line. You literally just install the app and it's all ready for you.
Right. It has its own dependency library that's kind of based on Homebrew's dependency library, but you don't have to manage that part of it.
Right.
It's going to come out of the box configured correctly for, with the really convenient stuff like memory limits and that kind of thing. It's going to be all handled for you. A lot of the PHP extensions you need will be in there too. So it'll be very similar to running your own Homebrew setup, but just you don't have to manage that anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's one of the thing I noticed when in like your blog post, as you said, is intelligently handles choosing ports for your servers. Can you explain a little bit about that? Like what I think I know what you're talking about, but maybe you could talk just a little bit about that. Like what do you mean?
Well, say you've got just a random web server, that artisan server running on 8,000, port 8,000. When Valet Lite starts up one of your sites, it's going to pick the first port of its like the range that it uses, and so it'll actually hit port 8,000 to see if anything's running on it already. Because a lot of times you can you have port collisions there and stuff won't work, and it's kind of a hard thing to understand. So Valet Lite's going to check out the port and make sure it's open and pick the next best one if it's not.
Okay. Yeah, because it's possible you're going to have multiple sites running that need to talk to each other, right? So I might have, like, for example, I have something where there's a little API connector between two of my apps. And if you're using something like PHP Artisan Serve or something like that, right? And that you don't have the ability to kind of serve them across different ports, they're going to collide. They're not going to be able to run at the same time, right? So it just kind of handles looking and saying like, oh, is there something running here? And I'll choose a different port automatically, right?
Right.
Yeah, and of course, one of the most important features is it supports dark mode.
Yes.
Yeah.
People will ask. Yeah. And that's for the people hacking at night,
For sure.
They're in bed while the spouse is sleeping, so that dark mode.
So you said that this is going to be Mac only to begin with. Do you have any plans to kind of like bring it to Windows, or is it pretty much just Mac users?
We're going to target Mac users firstly. With this whole project, there's been a lot of research on how PHP is compiled for Mac OS, and of course you have to do different versions for Windows and Linux. So
sure, yeah, that makes sense.
That's a little bit above my knowledge base right now, so I'd have to figure that out first. But in theory it's possible because it's an Electron app, so it could be delivered cross-platform.
Yeah, that was gonna be my next question. Actually, it was so like, what was that like? I've never developed anything in Electron. Michael, have you ever had the chance to do anything like in Electron? Do you have anything? Have you ever messed around with it much?
I have never had the inclination. I was talking about this to my mother-in-law this morning when we went to visit Ree's family, because she's a lecturer, or was a lecturer at the university here across some varying different subjects. And I said, in in our line of work in IT, sometimes you just need to put the blinkers on and focus on where you're going, right? Or not the blinkers, the blinders. Get the tunnel vision and just like, because there's so much stuff always coming. There's always, new ways of doing things. There's like, new versions of PHP. There's like JavaScript and there's TypeScript and there's all these different things. And if you start looking at every single thing, you can't get anywhere. You're always going to be scrambling to keep your head above water. And it's good to at least be aware of some of these technologies. And for example, something like Livewire, when Caleb first started talking about that, I was like, it sounds cool, but I don't really, see why I would use it. And then he demoed it at Laracon last year, and then I thought, okay, this is starting to make a lot more sense to me, but I didn't really have anything to work on it with. And it wasn't until his presentation at Laracon Online this year that I was like, the penny has reached the ground floor. I'm ready to go on this, and I have been using it in a couple of different projects since then, and it really makes sense to me as someone who doesn't really profess to know a lot of JavaScript, and I don't really enjoy writing JavaScript personally, and being able to just do everything in PHP and Blade and all of that. Like, I get that philosophy, and I kind of dig that. So being able to be aware of technologies and knowing when it makes sense to sort of jump on them. Electron is not really something that I've looked at, because it's it's not just Electron. I suppose you then have to know the JavaScript side of things, and you need to know I assume Vue or React or something like that to build out all of your interfaces. And it's not just learning to build an Electron app, really, and that's where it gets a little bit beyond the realm of especially now. Like, I have no free time. I think I'm going to sit down on the computer for an hour because I got Eli down for a nap, but then Liv wakes up, and then the other day I thought I was going to get an hour and I got like 45 minutes. And then the next time I got to look at a computer was, 6 hours later, and I got 15 minutes between when I got Liv down for a nap and when I had to go and pick Eli up from childcare. So for me personally, it's really one of those things where I need to be very selective and pick and choose what I'm going to learn and what's going to be impactful for me, which was a really long-winded way of answering your question. Have you used Electron?
Yeah, no, I think it's a really good point, because you're right in that if you're literally just constantly trying to keep up with all the tools, yes, you'll have all the knowledge. But David, you always say this thing that I always forget what exactly it is, but I can't remember. You'll know exactly what I'm talking about. This quote you say, like, learn everything you can so you use as I know you can finish that. You know what I'm talking about. What's that thing you say?
Oh yeah, I'm trying to remember exactly what it.
I've heard you say it like 5 times. Learn as much as you can so you can use as little as you need to, or something like that.
Yeah, that's it. You know it better than I do.
So I've heard you say it before, but basically the idea that, like, basically what you said, Michael, which is be aware of the tools and know as much as you need to about them to know when it's appropriate to use the correct tool.
Yeah.
Right. So I think the question I have is, like, why did you choose Electron? Like, obviously, if you're targeting Mac only, it's possible you could have chosen to go in another direction and done like a native Mac app or something like that. Right. So what was attractive about Electron that made you kind of go that direction?
Well, I've been working on the web for over a decade, so that being able to use web technologies means I can kind of bypass, that learning curve that's required to use Swift and Xcode, deliver apps that way, and kind of just focus on the idea. And actually, the app is really got a pretty simple stack. It's a Vue CLI app at its core, but then has sort of the Electron bundling built in through a plugin. And so it's really easy. I can just hit yarn Electron start or Electron build, and I've got a Mac app ready to go working. And it supports like hot reload and all sorts of stuff like that. Makes it really easy. So not having to think about like compiling and learning a whole new API, a set of APIs for the Mac made it really nice.
So are you using like Vuex in the background? Like, what are you using for state management? Like Vuex stuff? Okay. And
it's
then
usually
like
a comment of Vuex, and then there's it writes to a config file on the file system.
And then you also have like this idea. Obviously, you're managing dependencies that are probably operating through the command line. So you've got to have some plugin or something like that that allows you to kind of talk to the shell of the machine you're running on.
Yeah, that comes with Electron.
Okay.
All these APIs to talk to different services throughout the operating system.
Cool. Yeah, we've deployed one Electron app at work, but I didn't work on it. I just told the guy who did it to work on it, and he did it, and he got it working. It works great. It's pretty amazing. Yeah, I know the updating story was a little bit tricky for us to figure out. Have you? I mean, I know sort of like before we talk about the updating, maybe you can talk about kind of where you're at in the process. Like, are you released now? Like, you've announced? Like, where are you kind of at? What's the stage you're at this point?
Well, I've been using the app for myself for about 2 months now, for all of my, Nova development, chipper development, that kind of stuff. So it's definitely in a state where it's workable. And I just actually this morning sent out the email to the list of people that signed up, because I didn't expect the response that I got. I was thinking that a few people, I put a tweet out there, and the tweet was linking to that article, and I was like, if you want to beta test this, hit me up on Twitter DM, which turned out to be kind of a bad idea because I got hundreds of DMs. And so I had to ask everybody for their email address too. So I had to go through all of those and ask for the email. And then I thought that was so dumb too. I could have just sent them a link to a sign up to put their own email address.
Sure. Yeah.
So about halfway through responding, I realized that I should probably throw up a mailing list and do it this way. And so I really botched the launch because I expected only like a handful of people that would even want to try to like beta test it.
So it's in like a beta mode right now. So you're just kind of like giving people a downloadable sort of thing that they can just chuck on their computer and then see how it goes from there.
Yeah, I'm gonna send the download link probably sometime next week to the beta after I fix, like, there's a few outstanding issues that I know people are gonna hit, and it's gonna be annoying for them. So I'm gonna fix that on my end and send the link out and just give them like disable the activation limit on my licensing system so everybody can just use like a beta license code.
Nice. Okay. So then what's the plan kind of moving forward? Like, do you have sort of a date that you're hoping to actually release? Is it going to be, I'm assuming it's going to be paid, subscription based, one-time payment? What's your kind of plan?
I'm thinking probably it's going to be a very, very cheap app, because it's, if it was expensive, you'd probably just go with something like MAMP, if that's something you were looking for, or MAMP Pro, I mean. So it's going to be really affordable, actually. And as far as like release date, I'm not sure. Just when it's like, it feels really good right now using it. I just need to get it into the hands of some people to make sure that, some unforeseen bug doesn't really like crash the project, because there's a good possibility, you don't know what you don't know,
That's right.
Somebody running some old version of WordPress, some crazy old version of WordPress, like, it's not working.
Yeah, just say November and don't put the year on it, and then it gives you 12 months to get your act together. Right, Jake?
Yeah, we don't have any experience with that. We don't know anything about that.
Yeah, so no big commitment to it, the timeline, but the hope is to get it out soon, because I want people to have it.
I'm curious, like, if something like this doesn't slot into a space, something like set app, right? If it wouldn't like involve, like, if it wouldn't be able to be included in a set of tools like that. I'm just curious what the distribution looks like with something like that. Do you know what set app is?
I think I've sort of heard of it a while back. It's like a subscription, and you get a bunch of apps.
You got it, exactly. So there's tons of them, right? I mean, I don't even know. I'm trying to think if Table Plus is included in it or not. There's a bunch of them though. There's a ton of them, and most of them are like little small apps, right? They're really convenient apps. I mean, some of them are priced as small as as little as like $2.49. You know what I mean? $2.49. I think it's a $10 a month subscription fee, but then you get access to all of those different apps. So like with something like yours, okay, so like Bartender is one that I use, which just kind of hides menus in your toolbar up at the top. You have things like a color chooser, which is like it sits on your Mac, and then you can basically sample any color on your screen. You have a markdown editor and previewer. You have a zip archiver. You have a batch renamer. You have all sorts of little tools like this. But it might be interesting, like if maybe you did something like, hey, we're going to have it out there for X amount of time for people who want to pay this amount of money for it. And then, maybe if like your sales slow down or something, maybe you do something like set app. It's probably like a commission thing, right? On set app, I would suppose. Like you somehow like you do like a discount for, it's probably like Spotify, right? Like every time somebody plays somebody's song, you get a certain amount of money. Like every time somebody's using your app, you probably get some sort of something. But
yeah, that's be an interesting something to look into. The kind of the idea I was thinking now is just like a one-time license for a version, and then like either do like a year of free updates or something like that.
Yeah,
because I like buying a piece of software and owning it and being able to own it and use that version forever and upgrade to the new ones if I have to. Versus like subscriptions just always feel kind of yucky for apps that sit on your computer.
I agree. Yeah, I like kind of like what Sketch has done and what a lot of people are adopting, I think, right? Which is like you said, like buy it once and then you get it for you own it forever and you get updates for X amount of time or something. Or if there's like a new version, you have to pay for the new version. I like that. Yeah, feels good. All right, what else do we need to know? I told you that I would only take a half hour of your time, and I know you were already sleeping and you got all pretty for us with your plaid shirt and your nice hat and all that. So we'll let you get back to bed. But what else do we need to know about Valet Lite? Anything else you can think of?
No, it's a pretty simple app. That's actually what's kind of nice about it. It's easy to explain. It runs your web servers, your Laravel apps, and WordPress apps. And it could run Symfony apps, but I just haven't built that yet. Built that part in there.
Yeah. So there's probably just like an additional, almost like a middleware, right? It just kind of sits in front of, or do you specify it when you create the new site on Valet Lite?
When you load the app in, it will detect what kind of app it is.
Gotcha. So you don't need to like preset it. It's just like it just detects it automatically.
Yep. And it knows how to launch the server for that framework or whatever it is.
How does the PHP version thing? Do you just specify that like in the project settings or something?
Yeah, in the app settings you've got the versioning, but one of the things I want to build is the per project PHP versioning because people have really been asking about that. Yeah. Because they have projects that are running on different versions but still have to talk to each other. And that's not something I usually have to run into, but I can see how that's a big thing.
Well, like for me, like one thing where that would be nice is like if I have a project I'm running 7 on and I want to upgrade it to 8 and I just want to see what happens if I just push it to 8, right? It's like I don't want to upgrade all of my apps to 8, which is what I'd have to do basically with Homebrew, right? If I just wanted to do like 8, it's like get everything to 8. But with something like this, if I had like a per project setting, I could say bump it to 8 and leave the rest of my stuff at 7. And so as I'm kind of switching things and upgrading them to 8, I can just bump it up and then see what breaks.
Yeah, the kind of tricky thing with the per project PHP version is that if you have anything linked on your command line, you're going to have, because like what I have is I have Valet Lite's PHP version that I have like symlinked so that whenever type, PHP artisan, whatever, it uses the version inside Valet Lite. But if you have like a per project version, you kind of run into PHP mismatch. So that's something that I have to look into and see if there's a good way to fix that.
It's always something, isn't
it? Always bumping on something.
Always. It'd be interesting, dude. This is actually, maybe this is a little bit, I don't know if this is interesting or not, but like I appreciate Laravel Shift. It makes it really easy to do upgrades, right? I wonder if he has like a PHP shift. I bet he probably does, huh?
I think
PHP shift from like 7 to 8.
He used to. Yeah, he used to. But they just, I think he's spoken about it on his podcast or something somewhere where he said there's just not the market for it where there is for Laravel. Like Laravel is, there's heaps of developers that are doing it. Everyone's trying to keep up to date, and it's easier to use Shift than it is to try and do it manually. Whereas with PHP, there wasn't. People within Laravel typically are keeping their PHP versions up to date because they're keeping their Laravel versions up to date. And people outside of the Laravel community aren't really looking for that kind of stuff. And people that are on older versions of PHP are either there because they have to be or because they just don't care. And so they're probably not looking to upgrade their PHP versions anyway. And he just didn't see the usage of it. But he did do I think a 5.6 to a 7 like in the early days and just didn't stick with it.
Yeah. Gotcha. Cool. Awesome. Well, I think that's pretty good, honestly. I think we learned pretty much what it is exactly you're aiming for, kind of what the timeline is for it, how you can get involved if you want to be in the beta. What's the easiest way for people to keep up with Valet Lite and sort of the most recent developments?
Well, right now I created an email list that you can get to by just going to davidhemphill.com/valet-lite-newsletter, or you just find the post in my Twitter
We'll
profile.
have a link in the show notes.
Yeah. Awesome. I'm going there right now. There it is. Valet Lite Beta Insiders. All right. I'm on the list. There we go. Notify me. Nice. Awesome. Well, that's all I got. Michael, what you got, dude? You got any questions to ask our amazing guest?
I have questions, but not for now because David needs his sleep. I will say, however, he does. Not that he's not a beautiful. Although that picture he sent the other day where he'd used that damn filter on his face, just really.
Oh my gosh, that was so creepy.
I got another one too.
It's very upsetting. The only other thing
it was David without a beard.
Yeah, it was very upsetting. Don't even try and picture it; you won't be able to sleep. The only other thing I have to say is to check out our friends over at Fathom Analytics, which is a simple, privacy-focused website analytics platform for bloggers and businesses. It shows you everything you need and nothing you don't. It shows you your popular pages, what websites are sending you the most traffic, and more, all from a super fast single screen. And they are GDPR compliant, which means you don't need one of those crappy cookie notices that take up half your screen. If you head over to usefathom.com/north, you can get a 7-day free trial, as well as a $20 credit off your first invoice. So basically you'll get roughly 2 months for free. Plans start at just $14 a month. So definitely check out Fathom Analytics. They're at usefathom.com/north.
Awesome. Hey, thanks everybody for tuning in. This was episode 83. If you'd like to find show notes for this episode, you can find them at northmeetsouth.audio/83. If you like the show, feel free to rate it up in your podcatcher of choice. 5 stars would be amazing. And if you'd like to follow David, you can find him at David Hemphill on Twitter or at davidhemphill.com. And if you have any questions or comments, hit us up on Twitter at Jacob Bennett or at Michael Dorinda. That's all I got, folks. That's all she wrote. All right, everyone. See you in 2 weeks.
Bye.
Bye. Remember, get commit messages are superfluous.
Best sign out ever. Peace.